Hi, I'm Paul Brodie. We're in my shop again. It's a good place to be. Mitch is behind the camera. He's recording, so that's how you know what's going on. We're doing the Tiger Cub today. We're going to take this motor all apart, but I've been doing a little bit of research, and you know that I owned a Tiger Cub when I was 15 years old. So what I found out was that a Tiger Cub, they were basically made from 54 to 68, although other people say they were made from 53 to 69. So somewhere in that range, that's when the Tiger Cubs got made. Edward Turner was the man responsible. He was the head honcho at Triumph, and he designed the Speed Twins. And he was smart enough to realize that if he could make an entry-level bike and get people on a Triumph, when they learn to ride, when they got more experience, when they want more power, they would go for the bigger bike like the 650 Bonneville. What also helped him an awful lot was the fact that in 1961 in the UK, in England, they changed the rules. They changed the law. If you had a learner's license on a motorcycle, you were only allowed to ride a 250 while you learned for, I don't know, a year, whatever. So the 200cc Tiger Cub, it fit right in there. And the big competition back then, it was the Villiers two-stroke, and it was a little bit unreliable, and it smoked, and it wouldn't do 60 miles an hour, whereas the Tiger Cub, it would do 60 miles an hour. One magazine even said that it did 74 miles an hour, but that must have been on a downhill with a tailwind. That's what I think. And they sold an awful lot of these. And back then, it became known as the Baby Bonnie because the styling was the same as the 650 Bonneville, which people loved. So they got the same styling cues on the Tiger Cub. That really worked well for them. And back then, a Tiger Cub, I read, cost about $650, which was half price of a Bonneville. So that was really attractive for entry-level riders. And just out of interest, I went on the internet last night and I typed in Tiger Cubs for sale, and these are the most expensive ones. They're in California. One is $7,000, one is $7,500. So that kind of shows you how they have increased in value. They've become a little bit collectible, I think you could say. When I owned one, I bought it for $125, and I actually made a $50 profit when I sold it. So we're going to take this one apart, and I'm going to show you some of the features of this design. There's some good points. There's some not so good points, and then we're going to have a look at the bottom ends here. What happened was I bought a bunch of stuff. I got 4 bottom ends, and I got a couple frames. And out of the 4 bottom ends, I'm hoping I can make 1 motor. That's my goal. So we're going to take a look. So I have 3 bottom ends here, and these ones have the zap strap on them. I don't plan on using these ones. So this is the one I plan to use because it has no welding on the crankcase. It's a 65 Mountain Cub. This one here is a 67 Mountain Cub, and I took a lot of the parts out of this one. That's what's going on here. I took these parts. So these parts are going to go into this one. And if you look on the bottom here, oh, look at that weld. So I don't know what happened in there. Inside there is the transmission. So something happened. I have no idea what. This one here is a 1960 Scrambler. It's desirable, apparently. And look at that. It's got welds in the same spot, right outside of the transmission. So I don't want to use anything that's been welded, because when you weld it, it pulls, and then these surfaces aren't flat anymore. Then you get oil leaks. And then This engine here is the one that I got out of the rolling chassis, and I thought this would be the best motor because it was the one in the engine, the one in the rolling chassis. And then look at that. This one's all welded up as well. So 3 out of the 4 are all welded up. Something else about this, I made this engine stand, and I know that the piece that comes off to hold the front engine mount, I know it's perpendicular because it got milled. Do you notice how the engine's at an angle? What that means is that the engine mount is bent. So how do you bend an engine mount? I don't know. So we're going to take this one apart because I've got parts for the 65 Mountain Cub, but I don't have a head and a barrel. What I'm hoping is that I can use the head and the barrel off this one and build up that motor there. I'd like to talk a little bit about the design features of this. When the engine's in the frame, what's nice is that you can work on the cylinder head, you can work on the barrel, on the piston. If you take off the cover here, you can work on the primary drive, you can work on the clutch. When you pull it around this way, engine's still in the frame, you can access the camshaft, you can access the transmission, you can do all that stuff with the motor in the frame. But if you want to change the countershaft sprocket and change your gearing, you have to take the motor out of the frame and split the cases, which is kind of absurd because on a Japanese bike now, if you want to change your countershaft sprocket, you take off a cover, it's 2 bolts and the sprocket's off. So this is probably one of the things that I don't like about this design. I mean, I know you don't change the sprocket that often, but to have to dismantle the motor, or split it anyway, that just seems to be, well, let's say English. I am English too, so I can knock them a little bit. Almost all the bolts it's a special size. It's known as Whitworth. That was a standard in England back in the 50s and the 60s. I think it got phased out in the 60s. So you can't use a standard wrench. You can't use a metric wrench. So what I've done, I'll show you this. I've got a metric wrench here. It's 11 and it's a 13. I held it in the vise and I took a sharp file, and I want to show you, you can actually see what's going on here. This is 11. So I've made it almost, 11.6 millimeters. And then it fits on, like it'll fit on there. It fits that bolt, that nut really nicely. And then on the 13, I open that one up to 13.45, and it's going to work on the head nuts. See that? That's a nice fit there. Because otherwise, I can't take it apart. So I made a special wrench. I wanted to show you a couple of the things. Okay, they started making these back in, we're going to say 1954, and you can see how the case is smooth here. All the points. Well, the points are up in here. It looks like a distributor, but it's not really. It's just one set of points. In 1962-63, they altered the design, and the points went on the side because apparently this was hard to access because you've got the gas tank here. It's hard to see. Another change that got made is that how the cases are split, it's split right here on the side. So this is basically one piece. There's the split right by my thumbnail. And then in 62, 63, they split here. So those are a couple of the differences over the years. So this is a better motor than this one here. There you go. This is a really handy hammer. It's got hard plastic, softer rubber. This is very good for knocking things loose. We'll take off the cylinder head next and see what's going on there. because I have no idea what's inside of this motor. Whether it's new parts, used parts. I looked down the spark plug hole. It looks like the piston is new, so that would be good if I can use the head and the barrel on the 65 motor. So what's my experience working with motors? When I was 18 and I left high school, I got a job in an automotive machine shop, and that's one of those shops that works on motors. So I was the young kid. I was doing the valve jobs, the rebores, and sometimes I'd overhaul a whole motor. So I got a pretty good education there working on this part of the motor. Okay, this is the push rod tube here, and it's coming loose. Oh. And these are the push rods. Apparently there's different sizes. So this is aluminum, and it's got a steel insert. Well, no, it's like a sleeve that goes on the top into the rockers. And those are the tappets there. You can see them sticking out. O2O, so it's an oversized piston. Looks okay. It could probably use a hone, maybe check the rings. It hasn't been honed. You can still see where the rings have been going up and down there. But we don't have any broken fins, so that's nice. This is the wrist pin that goes all the way through, and on each end is a little circlip. And you don't, oh! There you go. There's the circlip, and it flew out. It hit me. Okay, it doesn't want to come out real easy. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to get a little bit of heat. If you're heating up something like this, the worst thing you can do is just hold it on there. You always keep that flame moving. And what this is doing is it's heating up the piston, and the piston is aluminum, and so it's got a higher rate of expansion than the wrist pin. So it allows the wrist pin to come out easily. That's what I'm saying right now. So let's just see if that works. There, see that? Okay, that worked really well. And what's also good to do is to mark which way the piston goes. Because sometimes piston's going backwards. There we go. Okay, so next thing we'll do is to pull out the points. What looks like a distributor. Okay, this wrench fits. There we go. If we look, let's look inside here and just see what we got. Well, looks kind of old, but that's the points cam. And that's the, can you see the points there? That's what opens up. That's what helps to make the spark. So it's all old stuff. I went to Wikipedia last night and I looked up the Triumph Cub, and they gave some interesting information about it. Apparently, if you're on the highway doing highway speeds, which back in those days was 50 miles an hour, a common problem with the Cub is that it would run at 50 miles an hour for half an hour, and then it would just stop. And apparently that was a common problem. So maybe that was because of the electrics overheating. They said that a cure was never found, so that's not really good for, I guess, the Triumph reputation. But that's what happens when the electrics are made by the Prince of Darkness, Joseph Lucas. Maybe you have stories about Joseph Lucas. Okay, we're going to take off the side cover now. There's not supposed to be any oil inside here. These are aftermarket Allen screws. Yes, they didn't come with with these. Someone has changed them, which is kind of nice, because a set, now if you go on eBay, you're going to pay, including shipping, you're going to pay close to $50 for a set of Allen screws. And it's not like you can just go buy these, because it's a Whitworth thread. It's like 31 threads per inch or something like that. I can't even measure it. I guess they didn't get an Allen screw for that one. Okay, so, oops, there it goes. So, oh, look, that's been welded as well. Yeah, you can see there where it changed color. So lots of welding going on these bikes for some reason. Okay, this is the Kickstarter spring. Okay, this came out of one of these motors here, and you can see there's a cotter pin. This is this pin right there. We don't have a cotter pin. That cotter pin is missing, and that's what stops the pin from sliding out. So whoever worked on this, they didn't put the cotter pin back in. So I'm going to spray a little bit of WD here, because we have to knock out that pin. There we go. That's coming out nicely. Okay, so that's what it looks like. It's in pretty good shape. It just needs a little bit of steel wool. Oh, there it comes. It's coming off easy. Oops. Okay, that's one of the tappets, and it rides on the cam. Oh, very interesting. Look, the bushing came. Okay, this is the bushing that the camshaft runs in. This is a press fit in the case. That is not supposed to just fall out. So something happened there, came loose. And then here's the other tappet. So these are the tappets that run on the cam. The push rods go in that, and that's what opens the valve. So this is part of the valve train. Oh, look at that. Ah, he tried to take it out and it fell down inside the case. So he didn't put one in there. He just left it in there. Great. I have some Whitworth sockets here. So if you look at the designation here, see, that's 5/16 and a W. The W stands for Whitworth. So that's way bigger than 5/16, but back in those days, that's just how it was. So let's see if I can find one the right size. Oh, looks like it's not even, look at that, I can just turn it by hand. That's not good. It just turns and turns, so not sure what's going on there. Okay, let's just take it out anyway. And this is one of the pieces that I need, because the ones that I have, they have no spline on them. There we go. Okay, so I got vice grips. It might put a little mark on here, but I have extra parts. Well, that's pretty seized. That's supposed to just pop right out. That does not want to come out. We could try heat. Okay, look at that. Oh, there we go. Okay, that's all it needed, was a little bit of heat from a propane torch. That's what the shifter forks look like. There's the other shifter fork. Okay, how this works, this is part of the shifter mechanism, and when you shift, it moves. You can see all the wear. Can you see all the wear marks? These, where's my pointer? These are supposed to be sharp. Can you see how that's all rounded there? So this is not a great example of a shifter cam. And see all these indents here? That goes onto here. It's a spring plate. Can you see that? So that's what holds the transmission in gear. That's one of the mechanisms. So this is, see this? This is first, neutral, second, third, fourth. That's how that works. These are this is the shifter cam. Oh, that's interesting. Can you see how it's two different threads? This is fine. Well, it's not fine. This is Whitworth. And someone has done something with the thread. This is not standard. Okay. There you go. That's all it needed. Just a little wrap. Couldn't use my regular screwdriver. Okay, the cover's coming off. It doesn't look like there's any oil in there. Okay, so we've got the a stator, I think you call it. This is the armature, if I got it right. Lucas, Prince of Darkness. So what I want to show you here, there is no chain tensioner. What kind of a design is that? No chain tensioner. So what would happen is, if the oil level got low or the oil leaked out and the chain gets dry and it stretches, that's a problem, because also with this double waisted design, do you see how it comes down here and it comes up there? It would actually, if the chain got so loose, it would actually hit, and it would hit here, and it would wear a hole in the case, and then you got a real problem. What they did over the years, can you see how they changed the design? Now it's got the straight sides. It's not wasted, but they still didn't have a chain tensioner. So in this one, I'm going to see if I can make a chain tensioner. That would be a really, really good project to have a tensioner. That is a 1/2 inch Whitworth socket. Looks way larger than half, doesn't it? 1/2 inch. So I've got this here. This isn't really the way I like to do it, but really I should have a wrist pin in there, and it should be supporting on the wrist pin, but this is aluminum, so it's not going to damage the rod. Let's just see what happens here. Oh, that wasn't torqued to 75 pounds or anything like that. Nice big lock washer. Oh, look at that. Can you see how the chain, something's going on here. There must be a spacer missing. Look how the chain has chewed up the whole inside of the rotor. Very interesting. Okay, a special tool. I made this for the Aramaki clutch. I took a file, I ground it down a little bit, I cut out the inside. And what this does, although you don't have to grind out the inside, but this is how you take off the clutch springs. There we go. And these that's what holds the spring. Okay, it all wants to come apart. Looks like it's in okay shape. There we go. Okay, that's the little wood rough screw. And that comes apart as a unit like that. This is a spacer that goes over the over the duplex sprocket. It's a duplex chain because it looks like a couple chains. See, there's like a little cutout there, and I put the aluminum into the cutout and I rest it on the case, and hopefully I don't have to put on a huge amount of pressure, and then it just comes off. Oh, look at that. They didn't even make it tight. Anyway. Okay, now we got to take this off. And this is the interesting part. Well, for me, I'm going to show you what's in the manual. Got this wonderful book out of England. And what they want you to do is to take 2 hose clamps, and then you take the puller and you pull it off. Well, I tried that. There's this other photo he's going to show you because I tried that. I had the hose clamps and I got the puller, and the puller wanted to slip, so I used a couple of pieces of wood, and then I had a C-clamp. It didn't work at all. I made this special tool. It took me a couple hours, but it works really well. So if I open this up, because I machined this to the same size as the clutch hub. There we go. On one of the motors, I put all the pressure on there, then I had to hit it with a 2-pound hammer. That's what broke it loose, because it was really tight. Oh. I guess the hose clamps, there is no way that should be that loose, because this is on a taper, and that goes onto here. And there's the little wood rough key. That was way too loose, so that would have been a problem in operation. When this cover comes off, we get access to the countershaft sprocket. So all that's happening here, if you wanted to change a sprocket, that's what you have to do. This all has to come off. English design. There we go, it's coming apart. All right. So there's the bearing. Okay, what I find interesting on this motor is that all the threads are in English sizes and all that, and the main bearing is metric. So even back in the 50s, they were using metric bearings in English motorcycles. Very interesting. It's got an oil seal there so that the oil from the primary chain and the crankcase, they stay separate. So you've got 3 different oils. You've got the primary chain, the engine oil, and the transmission oil, just to complicate everything. In a Japanese motor, there's just one oil. One oil does everything. English, 3. So this is a taper. They changed the design in 62, 63, and the shaft came all the way through. And okay. So you probably need a special puller, but I don't have a special puller, so this is what I do. And give it a little tap. See if it breaks loose off the taper. Maybe this one's on pretty good. Oh, there we go. So it's a taper, and this runs the camshaft, and this runs the oil pump. Can you see the oil pump? Can you see how the oil pump works? See on the end there's an eccentric. Well, yeah, see that? That's how the oil pump works. And they changed the oil pump in the early 60s because this one wasn't as good. There we go. So this is out of some of the other motors I took apart. Okay, I want you to see this. You can actually see the heat marks of how hot it got. It's okay to have play side to side, but you're not supposed to have play up and down. Look at that. I think that's the most play I've ever seen. That's just huge. Okay, so we'll get rid of that. I want to show you something here. This is how the flywheels were up until I think 62. Can you see how short this is? It goes into here. You see, it's a bronze bushing. There's no ball bearing. It's a bronze bushing. What would happen is that a person would use the bike and they'd start it up, and when it was still cold and the oil wasn't moving very well and they'd ride the bike hard, this would seize up. This was a bad design. So the later crankshafts, flywheels, they've got a ball bearing on both sides. That was a much better design. This is 62, 63 or later. This is pre. So this is a 57. It's got the old style of flywheel. Once this whole clutch comes off, then you can pull out the shaft, and what gets left is the one gear inside. There's a thrust washer. We'll get that out of there. There we go. It's not that tight. There we go. It's probably a 17-2 sprocket. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. 18 tooth. That's a bigger one. That's the interesting. Oh, I see. It's from the road. It's from the road Cub. So they would have put a larger one on the. And 17 was the regular one. And then on the Mountain Cub, a part of the serial number, it says 16T. 16 teeth. Okay, so the bushing for the lower, it fell out. That's not good. So okay, that bushing fell out. This bushing fell out. That bushing should never fall out. So there it goes. This the transmission. That's all 4 gears off the. This would be the main shaft, because that's what drives. The other one is called the lay shaft. So basically, that's what it looks like when it's all empty. You can see in here where the weld was, and I think something happened with the transmission, and I think it's the transmission. That's all that's in there. So it would have to be the transmission. Anyway, that's our segment for today. I hope you enjoyed watching me rip apart a Tiger Cub. Thanks for watching. Mitch and I like coffee. If you buy us coffee, that would be much appreciated. Stay safe. See you next week.